Hello. I'm going to be talking about the effects of cell phone use while driving tonight. A cell phone call or a text message may seem harmless to most people while driving, but the effects of this so-called harmless act can have on your driving are significant and often prove disastrous. Cell phone use, whether hands-free or otherwise, is a severe distraction and can increase a driver's risk of an accident. I know when I'm distracted, if I'm being honest with myself, and can also see how it affects my driving. Often, when I see what appears to be a reckless driver, I find that most of the time the driver in question is actually on their cell phone. The knowledge of the serious effects that the distraction of a cell phone can have while driving should be enough to motivate anyone to altogether avoid distractions when they're driving their car. I will be providing a few statistics on the effects of cell phone use while driving. I will discuss briefly legislation that has been passed involving this act, and I will also address researcher testimony on the issue. First of all, I will begin by describing briefly what specific effects cell phone use can have on driving. Everyone knows the dangers of driving while intoxicated, and it's also pretty common knowledge that many fatalities occur because people choose to ignore these dangers. The government has created a website through the U.S. Department of Transportation at distraction.gov from which I've pulled a few facts, including the following. Reaction time is affected by cell phone use as much as a blood alcohol concentration of 0.08%. The amount of brain activity devoted to driving is reduced by 37% when using a cell phone, and 37% is a pretty significant percentage. So, the U.S. Department of Transportation provides many more statistics illustrating the prevalence of fatalities and accidents involving driver distraction. There have been, and surely will be many more, scientific studies devoted to determining the effects that cell phone use has on the brain while driving. Now that you have an idea of the effects of cell phone use on driving performance, I will address legislation dealing with this issue. While people continue using cell phones while driving, the government involvement in this issue has greatly increased and is still increasing. A. Vanderbrook wrote an article for MSN.com entitled "Distracted Driving Gets More Attention," which included the following information. 19 United States, as well as D.C., have either placed a ban on texting while driving or limited restrictions on texting. 9 states have banned novice drivers from texting, which is just inexperienced or younger drivers, usually below the age of 21. Using cell phones while driving has been banned altogether for novice drivers in 21 states and Washington, D.C. There are other levels of legislation, and surely more is to come. A simple Google search will bring up pictures like the one I'm about to show you that illustrate the different levels of texting bans in the U.S. I obtained this picture with that method, and as you can see, I don't know if you really can see it, but the light brown indicates no ban on texting, the blue indicates a partial ban, and the dark brown indicates that all drivers in that state are banned from texting. Insurance companies are also weighing in on the dilemma. Allstate places distracted driving in the category of driver negligence. Nationwide Mutual is working with companies to develop a technology that will prevent drivers from getting calls or texts while in their cars, and they also plan to provide a discount to customers who use this technology. I will now address testimony provided by a researcher on the Oprah Winfrey Show. David Strayer of University of Utah says, "We are just not wired to multitask in that way. Driving with a BAC of 0.08 increases the risk of a crash by up to 4 times. Mr. Strayer pointed out that text messaging can increase the same risk up to 8 times. He included a slideshow of photos that illustrate what an attentive driver sees as opposed to a distracted driver, beginning with this photo. Now this is what an attentive driver would see. And then we see the same scene, but this is how a distracted driver would see it. And it's an illustration of a sort of tunnel vision that can be experienced when you're using your cell phone. This is another scene. It shows a very busy street and a stop sign. This is what an attentive driver would see. But someone that distracted by something like a cell phone would see this. You can see they can't see the sign. There's nothing in the rearview mirror, and the street is pretty much empty. Mr. Strayer focused on the fact that many drivers think they are more competent than they actually are. But this does not decrease the effect of the changes in your brain when you're distracted in such a way as using a cell phone. The brain is simply not capable of devoting attention to too many things simultaneously, as David Strayer stated in his conclusion. To reiterate, cell phone use while driving is proving itself to be a significant form of distraction with dire consequences. I have provided some statistics and testimony to illustrate the point that cell phone use while driving is a dangerous gamble, and I've also discussed briefly how legislation and insurance policies have been affected by this issue. In conclusion, I sincerely hope that this information has motivated you to be the safest driver you can be. It is a simple sacrifice that is insignificant compared to what could happen should you choose to ignore what you have learned. The movement against using cell phones or other technology while driving is growing rapidly, and there is no reason not to join it. We should all remember that our cars are for transportation. When you're driving, please just be driving. Thank you.